Hello and welcome to part 4 of this bike mini maintenance series with Cycle Training Wales and Blythe Gwent Youth Service. Today we're going to be looking at repairing a puncture. Last time we looked at taking a tyre on and off, inner tube in and out. Well, if we don't have a new inner tube in, we need to actually repair the hole in our tube. So that's what we're going to look at today. First of all, we need to find the hole. So in order to do that, we need to pump the inner tube up. So I've got a Schrader valve, car tie valve, just not a few pumps, going to make the inner tube quite large. There we go. So the first sensor I'm going to use to find the hole is my hearing. I'm going to listen for it. Then once I've heard the little hissing, I might use my cheek to try and feel something. Yeah, I can feel it now. And last of all, just a little bit of spit. I see the little bubbles bubbling up and I know where my hole is. But once I've found the hole, I want to make sure that's nice and dry. If none of that works and you can't find the hole, you might try feeding the inner tube through a bucket of water or a sink. And again, we're looking for little bubbles bubbling up. And that's a last resort if you can't find it through the first method. Okay, so once I've found my hole, I need to mark it. So let's just have a look here what we get in our puncture kit. There's our box. We get some sandpaper, the patches, our rubber solution, a piece of chalk, and you get a little crayon. Well, I prefer to use a pen to mark my puncture hole. So mark the hole, nice big cross, really big cross, like so. Before I do anything else, I'm going to let the air out. I don't want to be working on my puncture with air coming out the hole. So it's a Schrader valve, I just need to poke something sharp in the valve, get all the air out. Okay, go back, found where I'd marked the puncture hole, put it across my fingers like that. I've got a nice flat surface to work on. The next thing I'm going to use is the sandpaper. By rubbing the area around the hole, I'm going to give it a key. It will rough the surface up and it's going to be much better for the patch to secure itself on the rubber. After I've done that, I've rubbed out my cross a bit, so I'm going to redo the cross where it marks the hole. Nice big cross. Next thing I'm going to do is choose the size patch I'm going to use. So you've got various sizes here depending on the hole you have. Particularly big one there, that might be if you've got an impact puncture where you've hit a curb or a pothole. You can always tell an impact puncture is two little holes together, call it like a snake bite. So you might want to use a larger patch for that sort of puncture. But I'm going to use one of the smaller patches there, so it's going to be going on like so. So the next thing, if you look at the rubber solution, some people call this glue, but it's really important to remember it is not glue. It doesn't act like glue, it acts very differently to glue. So first of all, I'm going to put on a nice thin layer of rubber solution, larger than, and this is also very important, larger than the size of the patch, like so. You can see that area there. I'm just going to spread it out a bit with my little finger. So black patch there, you see it's much larger than the size of the patch in my area. Okay, now if this was glue, you'd put the patch on straight away, but it's not glue. It's actually, its full term is vulcanizing rubber solution. It needs to vulcanize or dry, must dry before we put that patch on. If we put that patch on now, the patch will just come off. So we've got to wait. Now if we were outside, it would dry quite quickly, 2 or 3 minutes, but if you're inside, you might have to wait a bit longer. So rather than you sit there and watch this solution drying, here's one I prepared earlier. You can see the difference there. This one's still really glossy and wet, and this one's dried out completely. If I touch this with my finger, it's completely dry. It's not sticky at all, completely dry. So I did this one about half an hour ago. Now it's completely dry. So I get my patch and I'm going to peel off the backing. I'm going to peel off the silver backing and then place that onto the hole. Okay, and push down That's all it should take. And then very gently, I'm going to lift off the upper plastic part, and there it is, puncture. And that should stay on for forever. Should be as good as the rubber that it went on. So the last thing we haven't used is the chalk. And on the back of the puncture patch, it's a nice rough area. And what this does is we've got all this excess rubber solution around the patch, which if we didn't put the chalk dust on and soak it up, it would stick onto our tyre when we put it back in. So there we have it. That's all nice and that it's not going to be sticky when we put that in. And there's our puncture repair. Don't blow the inner tube up again until you put it back in the wheel, because that way the tyre will be nice and firm on that patch. And there's a puncture repair.